Welcome to History H114, Western Civilization 2. I am Professor Eric Sock. I'm your instructor for this course, and I'm very much looking forward to teaching it, and I hope you are looking forward to taking it. And for whatever reasons you are here, whether it's simply because this is a required course that you need to fulfill as part of your degree requirements or general education requirements, or whether this is a course that you're generally interested in. That's great too. Any reason why you're here, I'm glad you are. I hope this will be an important course for you, and I certainly think that it will be or should be for reasons that I'll be talking about actually in the first lecture. This talk or lecture is simply a welcome hello to introduce myself, so to speak, um, and we'll be going from there. Everything you need to know to get started with the course is already posted. And the first thing you should do, probably in terms of getting started, is after watching this video, is look at the syllabus. Because the syllabus, which is a document, it is a document posted in course documents. It's also posted in this module, Getting Started, Welcome Getting Started. The syllabus is very much the structure of the course, what's assigned, the reading assignments, which I'll say more about shortly in a minute as well, and the requirements for due dates and things like that, and lecture titles and topics and so. It's really the foundation of the course is the syllabus. So it's very important to really go through the syllabus and read the syllabus carefully. And that's probably the best thing you should do first to get started. And then thereafter, there is another document that is part of the assigned readings for week one, Introduction to the Course. That document is also posted in course documents, in the module course documents. That too is very important because I say a lot of things in that document about this course, how to approach it, the structure of those things. And today, in this welcoming and introductory lecture talk about getting started, I'll be touching on some of those things, but more detail is given in that document, Introduction to the Course. So I hope you will then read that after you look at the syllabus carefully and after you listen to this welcome talk. I just want to go over some basic things right here, right now, in terms of this course. I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you have access to Canvas and you're are working on beginning to, or at least thinking about beginning to start this course. The official start date, I believe, is January 8th. But this course will be available to you at least by January 1st. So that's what this is about. Now, as you also, I'm assuming, all know, since you've registered for this course is a 100% online asynchronous course. Now, I talk a fair amount about that in the introduction to the course document, but that means that there's never a time where we all will be meeting together. You have the freedom to do this course at your own pace, and those are the positive aspects of it. The negatives is it puts added responsibility on you. And I talk about this in the introduction to the course document, which I hope you all read and take seriously. Just, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I really don't like online 100% asynchronous courses. I'd much rather prefer being in person and seeing you and being able to talk to you in person. But given that this is the structure that was given us or given to me for this course, this is not my option. This is what I was told I needed to do. And I've done these kinds of courses basically regularly for quite a while now. But the positives of this, because I try to make the best of a bad situation when I say I don't like this kind of a course, it's like, okay, but then how do I make it the best I possibly can make it, given the format, so to speak? One of the big positives is it allows you to really work at your own pace. That is great. You can, listen to the lectures late at night, early in the morning, in the middle of the day, while you're, eating lunch or whatever. You can listen to them several times. All these things are positives about the course in this format. But the responsibility to keep on track and to make sure that you submit work required on time, or let's say in a timely fashion, is all on you. Now, I address due dates in the introduction to the course. So pay attention to that. There are no firm due dates except for the final, which I believe is May 3rd. So all work has to be submitted by May 3rd. But until then, you have the freedom to do it as you would like. So what does this course consist of? What's it all about? Western Civilization 2. Some of you, certainly, maybe many of you, or most of you perhaps even, have already had Western Civilization 1. Now, if you've had Western Civilization 1 with me, you already have a pretty good idea of what I'm like and what I'm about and how I go about doing things. This Western Civilization 2, 114, I'm doing things a little bit differently than I do in 113, but you still would be familiar with my approach, my grading approach, my styles, what I'm looking for, and those kinds of things. Having H113 is not a prerequisite for H114. In some ways, in the best of all possible worlds, it would be or should be. But this course, if you have not had Western Civ 1, don't worry. This course does not require you to have any background knowledge much at all. It will be provided to you what you absolutely must know to know the course material. But there also may be times where in my lectures I will refer to things that you really don't understand what they're referring to because they're kind of before this course gets started. If you look at the syllabus, you will see that the textbook really begins in 1648. And I'll be talking about the textbook more shortly. But it's really the development of Western civilization from 1648 to the present. The first couple of lectures deals with, in some ways, the medieval period and early modern period up to 1648 in 2 lectures. So there's no way I can really cover that material, but at least I try to get people up to speed. Now, if you've had 113 with me, or with perhaps anybody else, you will. Some of these early lectures will be repetitious for you, or I hope they will. So it's either might be reminding you of what you've already learned, but we'll go from there. So this is taking this course from the mid 17th century up through the present, basically, is what this course is about. There are, in terms of the assignments, we have up there in why assignments, I mean the graded assignments. There are assigned readings in the textbook that you will need to look at the syllabus for, because every week in the syllabus will give the required assigned readings in the textbook and the source readings. The source readings, which I'll come back to talk to a little about shortly, are posted in the module canvas when they're assigned. So that is provided there for you. But the textbook you're going to have to acquire, and there's various ways to acquire it, including online, which I talk about in the introduction to the course document. So please pay attention to that because you need to have access to the textbook for this course. That's important. The components of this course there are 3 basic components: the textbook readings, the lectures, and then the source documents that are assigned. And all 3 of those components of this course go into grading your performance on the exams, which brings me back then again, as I just started out here, to talk about the assignments for this course, the graded assignments. There are 2 midterms and a final, and then there are discussions. I'll be talking about the discussions shortly. If you're following along in the PowerPoint slide presentation for this welcome and introductory talk, you'll see that I'll be getting to the discussions. The midterms and the final. The final is comprehensive, and also, if you are looking at the PowerPoint, you'll see I'll be addressing the final specifically in a bit as well. The midterms are designed to help you prepare for the final. And I talk about my grading policy and what the relationship is between the midterms and the final in the introduction to the course. So that will be taken care of all there, but just be aware that that's what you're looking at. That's what the assignments will be. These are all take-home assignments. Take-home, that's ridiculous because we are home to begin with. But these are written essay, basically, assignments that you are to post then on campus. And if you have any questions about any part of this course, practically or otherwise, please just reach out to me in an email. We can set up a Zoom meeting. We can even arrange to meet in person if you would like. And I'll probably be repeating that statement, assertion, exhortation, or offer, or whatever, almost every time we see each other, which is not quite right, because that would be every lecture, and I hopefully won't be saying that every lecture, but I may. If there's any questions, just reach out to me in email. But please feel free to at any time. So that's the structure. The midterms are each worth 25% of your final grade. The final is worth 40% of your final grade, and the discussions as a whole all are worth 10% of your grade. But as I have it set up, the final is comprehensive. And if you do better on the final than you do on the midterms, your final score will replace your midterm scores. So that's really what I care most about, is what you come out of this course with. So if you have any questions about this, again, just ask. I say a little bit more about this in the introduction to the course document. But at this point, certainly don't worry about it, even though you should be aware in terms of planning your semester workload, so to speak. Okay, I'm going to have 2 midterm terms to write, and then the final to write. That's what I'm looking at. The midterms and finals are all posted. And so you should also maybe take a look at those, especially the final, but I'll be, again, talking about the final shortly, more specifically. But just to see what's involved, because it's not it's not an insignificant amount of work that is expected and or required to do well on the midterms. And then the final as well. So just as a help to you as you're planning your semester and your workload for the semester, try to take in the whole here. I do not use calendar. I don't send out little reminders of something being due. You need to be aware of when things are due and or expected, and plan that for yourselves. So that's what that's all about in terms of the structures and the assignments. There is a fair amount of reading in this book, in this course. Sorry, and I have it there. The textbook is a good textbook. In some ways, I think all textbooks are bad, but this one I think is one of the best or the least bad, so to speak, of all the textbooks. And in the introduction to the course document, again, I talk about how to go about reading the textbook, because it's important. You are expected and required and responsible for all of the course material. Theoretically, I will give you guides to help you get through that course material, because there's just too much of it in some ways. But you are expected to do all the reading, to read everything in the textbook, and to be aware of it and how it all fits together, and to take into account all the lectures and the information provided there, and the perspectives and interpretations and insights provided there, and do all this reading of the source material, and use that as part of your answers and as support of your arguments. But this will become more clear to you when you really get into the work and look at in more detail what the midterms are requiring and what the final is requiring and how to go about answering them. And so, but just be aware of what's kind of coming down the pipeline, so to speak. So the textbook will be a lot of reading. The source documents that I have assigned are essential, I think. Now, if you look at the syllabus too, you'll see that sometimes, not every week is there a textbook reading and then source readings too. Sometimes there's a couple of sources. I was certainly aware of the number of pages being assigned, so I tried to balance things out a little bit, but we still need to get through the material. That's just plain and simple. We need to get through the material. There are a couple of weeks when there are no source readings assigned, but there are textbook readings assigned. So just be aware of that. And you're welcome to work ahead too. And if you're sitting around in week 3 and you've done everything you need to do for the week for all your courses and you've nothing better to do, then start doing the reading for week 4 of this course. Things like that is what I'm talking about. So kind of plan your own work accordingly. That's the big aspect there. The lectures are my own lectures, and I'll be posting them videos just like this one of the lectures. In 113, if you have had me, you know that I wrote up my lectures and posted the written lectures. But here I thought, for a variety of reasons, again, that I would post lectures. Now, one of the things you should know about me is that my area of research and expertise is actually before this course even officially gets started, meaning I'm a specialist in late medieval Reformation Europe. I've posted a brief self-introduction to myself in getting started, as well as my academic CV, my CV, which is a short for a curriculum vitae, which is an academic resume, basically, so you can see who I am. I think it's important the students know who their instructors are. I addressed this too a little bit in the introduction to the course document. But by saying that my expertise in my level areas of research is in the, let's say, 14th through early 16th century, is not to say that I don't really know anything about the rest of it. But it does mean that I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in World War I or World War II, or I'm not an expert in Napoleon, or I'm not an expert in, the 20th century Middle East at all. That is a given. No individual can be an expert in all areas of history. It's absolutely impossible. Even for Western civilization, it's impossible. Even with History 113, I'm an expert in a rather limited chronological period of the whole thing. That's just the way things are. But I use my expertise and experience to offer insights and interpretations of the whole and how it all fits together. And that is important for you. I'll be talking more about interpretation and quote unquote facts and information and those kinds of things later on. But I think that, that's what makes this course, my course, and special. You're not paying to be taught a set body of information that you should be able to gain on your own. That's what the textbook is. It's a set body of information. Now, there are interpretations in the textbook, rather disguised. You have to kind of try to figure out where the author's coming from. But the lectures are interpretive because the whole issue is, how do we put this all together? How do we understand it? So based on my own academic, scholarly, professional expertise and experience, based on my personal background and expertise, I shouldn't say that expertise there. I don't have personal expertise in my own background, but just my own personal experience, which we all have. I bring things to the course that really no one else can. And that's really what you're paying for, is me to teach you this course. So that is how I conceive of what's going on here. I mean, as you'll hear, again, I lived through, well, I'm old enough that I lived through this, a lot of the later part of the 20th century, and more or less as a conscious adult, sort of. And my father, for example, was in World War II, and his father was in World War I. And I've heard those stories, and so there's kind of a long background that I bring to my understanding of the historical record, which I'll be talking a fair amount about. How do we understand these documents? How do we understand what's going on? Because that is so important, especially in the context in which we live today. That's why I say that history is not a thing of the past; it's a thing of the present. That theme will come back because we study it in the present. We are, interpreting it in the present, and it's all about how did we get in the situation that we're in. I'll be talking again more, or actually a lot about that later on, especially in the first lecture of week 1. I'll be addressing those things. So again, if you have any questions about me, my background, my expertise, and why it is that I'm teaching this course, or what are you expecting to get out of it, please just ask. Now, just as I posted a self-introduction, I've asked all of you to post a self-introduction in discussion in week 1. If you look at week 1, there are 2 discussions, a topical one, and then the self-introduction, just to say something about, who you are, why you're taking this course, how it fits into your program, what you expect to get out of it, and go from there. And you can share whatever other information you might want. So that's kind of what this is all about. Now, where am I looking here? We've got the textbook, the assigned readings, the lectures. I haven't really talked about the assigned sources. The assigned sources, well, I think I already did a little bit, but the assigned sources are really what history is all about. That's what historians do. We interpret sources, most of which, not all of which by any means, but most of which are texts. And then we try to discern, quote unquote, what happened in the past and how did it all happen and what came about and what did happen. The past is not a given. We can't examine the past. We can't examine the evidence that signifies the past. And so in that sense, that examination of the evidence is the part of history that I still refer to as history as science. When was this document or this artifact, this ruin? When was it? What does it signify? What does it mean? What does it tell us? That is a scientific evaluation. And then how we put it all together is where history as art comes in. How do we understand it? What do we make of it? But if we just have the history as art without the history as science based on the extant evidence, then it's just kind of make up things. We can make believe things. And then there's no basis for determining who's right or who's wrong or who has a better interpretation or a worse interpretation. And that gets very much into the situation we find ourselves in this country anyway, but also worldwide in so many ways in terms of the global political situation and alternative facts and fake news and everything else. It's like it's insane. It's insane what is going on in this country and around the world in terms of misinformation and what people believe and why, when there's no evidence of it. That's why one of the reasons I think history is so important. We need to come back and examine the evidence. And then what we make of the evidence is something else. Certainly there's, going to be debates and different positions and interpretations and arguments. But at least we should be arguing about the same thing, so to speak, the same pieces of evidence. But we'll be talking more about that in a fair amount about it. Okay. I should also say maybe that's what makes this course too even more challenging, is because the sheer mass of extant evidence, of extant texts and everything. It's mind-boggling compared to H113, Western Civ 1, or any kind of pre-modern approach to history, wherever we are in so many ways. And so it makes it difficult to really get at the evidence. So you're going to be reading a few pieces of evidence, a few documents, a few texts. But just you have to keep in mind that these are very few. But what can we say about the past based on these documents? And so by reading these documents, you are actually doing historical work. That's one of the excitements of things about it too. Okay, so much for that. Then it comes to discussions, because I've already addressed the lectures, I believe. So discussions. Every week there's a discussion post, I believe. Now, in class, if this were in person in class, we'd be having discussions, and you'd be welcome to raise your hand at any point during the lecture so we could talk about it. So often, sometimes during my lectures in an in-person class, we get off on a discussion topic that has only tangential is related to the lecture topic I was planning anyway. But here, the lectures are you can't stop me in between times. You can maybe pause the video and then send me an email. What do you mean by that? That's fine. So we have to approximate, how do we do a discussion in an online asynchronous forum? And that's kind of difficult. As I said, the discussion grade, you don't get graded per this week. It's a final overall grade. The discussions too, though, are intended not just for each one of you individually to post something, post some answer to the prompt, because there'll be a prompt, a question given to you that you're supposed to respond to. And your task is not simply to sit back and say, okay, I'll come up with some answer, blah, 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 blah. You type it in, you post it, and never worry about it again. That's not the idea. You can do it that way. You can. I think it'll be pretty clear and obvious if you do it that way, but that's fine. You'll get your points. I don't grade quantitatively, and with discussion, it's really hard to grade qualitatively because I want the discussion to be for all of you. You should feel free to ask questions yourselves. If there's a question, you might post something like, "I really have no idea what this question is getting at," or "I have no idea how I could possibly go about answering it because I just don't know. Can anybody help me?" That would be a great post. And then I hope someone might respond, because the whole point of discussion is the back and forth. And so I encourage you to spend some time in discussion and reply to what other people post. Be polite. If I find that there are people who are not being polite, that will not be good for those people who are not being polite at all. And that will be probably, I haven't even thought about this because I've never actually had this problem. So this is just popping into my head right now. But it's like, okay, if someone's not being polite, I will give them a warning. If they do it again, they will at the very least, get a 0 for their discussion posts. So that's, I didn't put that in the syllabus, but I'm saying that right now. But I hope I don't have to deal with that. So please don't test me on that. The idea is just, it's almost ridiculous that we have to state it, but just be polite and respectful. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. You can strongly disagree. Saying you're wrong is not being impolite or disrespectful. You can say, I disagree, but then say, here's why. If you say you're wrong because of, that's fine too. But if you say, that's a stupid statement, that's not polite. I hope that kind of makes a sense. So back up your statements, enter it into conversations. I think I say in the introduction to the course document, when I'm talking about discussions, that you should think of it kind of as going out and having beer with friends after class, beer or wine or whatever. And talking about the material. That's kind of what this is designed to be about, if possible, at least ideally. Now, for your 10 points, do you have to post every week? Not necessarily, no. I will look at the profile. I can see how often. I will be chiming in on the discussions too. The discussions are for you primarily, but I'll be popping in. I will be reading everything. I'll be reading all the discussions. But I'll be popping up, periodically, and sometimes I'll be posting things too, or whatever. So, but it'd be best not to ask me a question in the discussion. I think this has never come about. It's just popped into my head. You can, but I might not get it for a little bit because I'm very good, I think, with responding to emails rather quickly, within a couple of hours, or at most a day at most. The discussions I'll check periodically, so it's not going to be that immediate thing. But if you feel free to ask me a question. I just might not get to it for a while in the discussion posts, but I will read them and I will post it from time to time as well myself, responding to people or to everyone or so. If you are a regular participant in the discussions, you will get your 10 points. Now you can say, well, what does regular mean? Does it mean, if there are 15 weeks, does it mean, 8 of those weeks is a regular participant? Well, it could be. But if it was every other week, but if it's the first 8 weeks and then there's no further participation, it's like, that's the problem. You see what I'm saying? I don't quantify. It's almost an impression. So just keep in mind that the discussion is something that I encourage. Why? Because I think it will help. The discussions are designed to help you prepare for the midterms. And the midterms are designed to help you prepare for the final. That's how it all kind of fits together. Now, when I said 2, and also when I state in the introduction of the course that all work is only finally due by May 3rd, the date of the final, the discussions are a little bit different. The discussions, since they're supposed to be a discussion, I've closed them out sometime. I give people a lot of leeway. The discussions before the first midterm are open. I'm almost positive until sometime after the first midterm officially is due. And those official due dates are like guidelines to say if this were an in-person course where you should be. And so once the discussions are closed, you can't post anymore. You can still access them, in my understanding, and read the post, which I would encourage you to do, because it's the idea is that the discussion is about the topic at the time, more or less. And so there is, let's say, a cutoff date in terms of posting comments in the discussions. And no, if you write me in the end of April saying I tried to post in the first discussion and it's closed, and you open it back up, that's too late. I hope that makes sense. I mean, that's just is the way it's going to be anyway. So because you're supposed to kind of keep along with the course. And that's like the only thing that I have here structurally to try to help prod you to do so. That doesn't mean, again, if you miss a discussion post, it's not that big of a deal unless you miss a ton of them. So anyway, if you have any questions about that, please just ask them. Okay, let's see. We're getting along here. The final exam of the semester project. Yeah. The final exam, as I just said, kind of is the culmination of it all, because that's what I really care about. And it is comprehensive, and you should approach it as a semester project. So it's posted. It's posted in the module final exam. It's posted in the course documents. I just want to read you the final exam question, because it's one essay question. I just want to read you the final exam essay question right now, just so you can start thinking about it. The question is this. One of the foundational factors in the origins and emergence of modernity was human rights. Human rights remain a foundational component of our world today in our attempts to live with each other within the global context, that is, both nationally, with respect to the U.S., and internationally. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was issued in the aftermath of World War II. Yet human rights so often seem to be threatened or ignored, both domestically, within the U.S., and globally. The U.S. Declaration of Independence asserts the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet we still have not realized that ideal. To what extent can the development of human rights be seen as a lens through which we can understand the development of Western civilization, from the emergence of early modernity to the emergence of modernity and on into our postmodern world? If human rights in many ways define modernity, how do human rights function within postmodernity? How should they function? Answer these questions based on the historical developments from the 16th century on into the 21st century. Be sure to address 1. The emergence of early modern Europe, 2. The emergence and development of modernity, and 3. The current situation of postmodernity. Or in other words, be sure to address the development of Western civilization from approximately 1500 to approximately 2023. Base your argument on evidence drawn from the course material, that is 1, the assigned textbook reading, 2, the lectures, and 3, the assigned source readings. All right. That is what you are going to have to do this semester, is to answer that question. You can start working on the final exam from day 1. And it's due May 3rd. It's a complex question. There are no right or wrong answers. There are good answers and bad answers. But we'll be talking more about that as we go along. If you have any questions about any of it, just ask. It can be overwhelming. But I wanted to read it to you because I want that overarching final question, the semester project, to inform your study and your work throughout this course from the very beginning. It should be at least in the back of your head, thinking, okay, how does this fit in? And as you'll be hearing in lectures and textbooks too, there's no such concept of human rights until the later 17th century, John Locke. There are rights of groups of people, stations of people, positions in life, rights and privileges. But the idea of inherent or unalienable human rights doesn't come about until the late 17th century. So how can you talk about what's before? Well, pretty easily. It's like, what were human rights, quote unquote, like before they were articulated and or asserted as human rights. But we'll talk more about it when we get there. And then what's the whole development? What does it mean that, in the Declaration of Independence, that unalienable rights? But we'll be talking about all these things. So have that in your mind. Is it overwhelming? Yes. But that's simply the challenge of history. Because history is overwhelming. It's overwhelming trying to put it all together, to try to figure out what happened, why did it happen, what did it all mean, and then to whom. Because it means different things to different people. It still does today. How do we find meaning in our own world? And is there one meaning, or is there meaning that everybody has and finds and creates for themselves? And then what do we do about that? It's a problem. It's a problem increasingly so in our divisive, increasingly individualistic world. How do we handle it? And what does it all mean? Western civilization, the history of Western civilization can't give the only answer, can't give the ultimate answer, can't maybe even give a single quote unquote right answer. But it's certainly part of the search. That's what this is all about. It's part of the search to help us figure out what's it all about in our present. That's the challenge of history. Now, that's all I have to say for today. We're talking about, we really get started next week, or whenever you start, maybe this week, maybe you're only viewing this Welcome Getting Started as part of the first module. That's fine too. Then get to it because you have 2 lectures to listen to and some reading to do. Good luck. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find something that you can get your teeth into, if I can use that old-fashioned phrase, but get excited about or get interested in, and use that to carry you through. If you have any problems, I'm here to help. So just reach out along the way. Okay. Good luck. Get started. After you've watched this video, go immediately to the syllabus if you haven't read through it already, and the introduction to the course document, and go from there. So good luck, and I will be in touch, and I will see you with week 1, lecture 1, when you get to it. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.